Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Nice trip in the end, and we're very happy to be able to go and represent not just the club but Indian football at the Champions League again next year after winning that game against Jamshedpur. So the thinking was, I've spoken about this since I arrived at the club, about wanting the best Indian players and to be able to develop those Indian players as well as we could. And a large core of the group that we have still that will go to this tournament have featured heavily and been a large part to the reason as to why we've been successful this year. But it's an opportunity for us to go and really see and offer further development opportunities and time to not just the group that have played, but also some of those younger players that may get an opportunity or maybe get some more game time to see what they can do. And that was a decision that we took. It kind of ties into what we've spoken about since I arrived, which was trying to develop and give a platform to these players to showcase what they can do. And this tournament certainly presents us with that opportunity to do that. We're preparing this team the same way that we prepared for every ISL game and Durand Cup game and Champions League game that we've had before. We know they've had some change, certainly since the league season finished for them. They've obviously played that qualifying game, which we were able to watch and get a feel for what they may do against us. But as always, we'll be as prepared as we think we can be for that game, for what they may throw our way. But the same as the rest of the season, it's going to be making sure that we're as prepared as we can be in terms of having control of what we have here, to try and do what we want, which is to continue playing a very attacking brand of football, an exciting brand of football, and giving these players a real good platform to go and showcase what they're capable of doing, whether it be against a very strong, I'm sure, I-League team, or against the two ISL teams which will follow. Yeah, it was an enjoyable season and a successful season for all of us here. But again, this is the fifth tournament in 12 months that we've played in. So I think obviously the ISL season is done, and teams will approach this tournament. Yes, those two teams we have played, but I look at North East and there's been a lot of changes there. So it'd be interesting to see what they do and how they set up. And we know Chennai. Chennai have given us two very good games, certainly the game we had at home. And they're going full strength with everybody. So it's a real good test and opportunity for us to try and set up and be as successful in this tournament as we have been throughout the year. When we look back, and I think this will be the last time an Indian team goes to the Champions League for a couple of years because of the reformatting of that competition, and us unfortunately at the moment losing that given spot that we have. So to go and do what we did last year, and I think 2 wins and a draw and finish second in the group, that was I think that will be something that will we'll try and do the same again, and we'll try and go better. But that level of competition is extremely high. And it's something we'll try and take and do what we did last time, and add to that. But the quality of those teams in there, it's a fantastic challenge. It's not one to be scared of. We've shown what we can do, and I think the players, if we take this squad certainly into the Champions League next year, I'm very interested to see what we could do. So yeah, it's very exciting. The consistency of it, this is now the second consecutive time that we're going, and I've spoken before. We want to be a club that we build, so it's not just one season and then have 2 or 3 seasons where we're not successful. However you want to define success, and we're trying to build the club in a way that we can be as good as we can without comparing ourselves to others, to allow us to try and compete year upon year, rather than just take each season at a time. So that's been kind of the remit since I come in over the last 2 years, and that was part of the reason for me, signing on and staying for another 2 years, because I'm excited about what we've been able to do in 2 years, but I'm more excited about what's to come. I think, I've worked in many places. This is the 4th country that I've coached in now, and I think the most important thing is that regardless of the perceived level of the player or the perceived level of the league that you're coming from, the most important thing to me in any of those environments, and I've coached in World Cups, I've coached in Olympic qualifiers, I've coached in many different leagues, but the clear thing, as long as everyone's clear on what it is that we're all trying to do, everyone understands how they fit in what we want to do and how they can contribute towards that, And then how we can try and be as supportive as we can and create a positive environment that allows those players to go out and really try and showcase what they can do. That's shown some real good results, and that's an approach that certainly we'll take in again. But we don't want to be a team that tries not to lose games, whether that be in the ISL, but certainly at Champions League level. We want to be a team that goes out to try and win games, but win it in a style of football that I'd like to think people are starting to now see more consistently from us, which is, possession-based team, attacking-based team, and one that gives players that platform to really go out and know that they're supported and able to showcase what they can do in a real positive sense. Yeah, it'll be different for us because the foreign players, of which you can only field 4 anyway, the foreign players do make a difference. But I've spoken about trying to build this club certainly in the last 2 years by having and developing Indian players, and we want those best players here. If we don't have them, obviously we try to develop them, and Vikram is someone that you've mentioned there, who's a good example of that. But when I look at our squad, I'll just give you a quick rundown, of the team that we can field. We still, of the last 2-3 games that we've played, whether it be the knockout stages, the Champions League game that we've just had, or the season, the team that we still have the likes of Fuba in the goal. We still have Vignesh and Mandar at left back. We still have Raul Beke and Metab. We still have Vineet, Rawlin and Apoya. We still have Chante, Bipin and Vikram. And then you add in the likes of young Gurkarat, young Ayush, and a couple of others in there with Hardik, Sanjeev. So I'm really excited to see, we've spent 2 years working with most of those players now. They understand what we do and how we do it. But we haven't yet been able to see if we can do it without foreign players, despite the fact that the players that I've just mentioned to you have contributed so well and so heavily to the success that we've had. So I'm excited to see what we can do and excited to see what these players can now produce against what will be 3 very good teams in that group stage. Yeah, I mean, we've never spoken, even throughout the season, whether it was the Champions League, the Rand Cup, or the ISL season, we've never spoke about winning the competition. The biggest thing we've focused on is our performance. Firstly, individual performances, and if you can do that as a collective, then the collective performance of the team. So yes, there is a balance between development and results, but we're a big believer and we've got a way that we work. And like I've said before, if players can understand it and hold themselves to their standards and really try and push themselves to see what they can do, we've shown the results that can bring, both this season in across 3 or 4 different tournaments. So that'll be the main focus, will be on the performance, whether it's the older senior Indian players that we have, or whether it's the young guys that will come in. But the thing will be, they know what they need to do and how they need to do it. And then it's an opportunity for them to really showcase what they can do, both for now and hopefully for the future. No, I think it's great. Whether it's a tournament, it gives us extra games, and I know teams will and can approach different phases with different purposes. Now this gives us more games on to what has already been. When we started back, when I first, or before I come to India, I used to hear the stories of the league being 2 or 3 months old. We started back in pre-season at the middle of July last year. So we're now 10 months into a season with now games, and this will be, I don't know how many games we would have played this year, but the beauty of that is it gives you an opportunity not only to really look at the players that you have, but it gives players opportunities to show what they can do, because you can train as much as you want, but the opportunity to compete against your peers in any competition, whether it's in India or outside, that's really where you're tested. And that's the one thing I'm really looking forward to seeing. And yeah, to me, whether it's the Rand Cup as it was at the start of the season, whether it's the ISL, the playoff games, or as it is now, the Super Cup, there's nothing more enjoyable, and I'm sure the players will tell you this, than playing a game rather than training. I think it's a wonderful achievement for the club. I think we've worked hard to make sure that we put ourselves in a position to consistently try and have success. And again, success will look like different things for different people. And ultimately, in the first team space, you're judged on the results. But we know sometimes that the performances don't necessarily guarantee you a result. So we've got different sort of measures that we hold ourselves to. So to be able to go back to back to Champions League. It's extremely exciting for everyone involved. And if we can go and put on the same account that we did last year, and we'll try and do more. We always will. We'll always try and push ourselves to get better. But it's an opportunity for our players to go and really showcase what they can do again on that stage of, what is the highest level of club football in Asia. So from a player's point of view, you want to play against the best and test yourself. And from a coaching point, I certainly want to go and test myself against those coaches there as well again. And that level of competition gives us that opportunity to do that. For me and for what we're trying to do, we want to challenge ourselves at the highest level we can. And right now, that opportunity at the Champions League is the highest level we can. Now, after this season, that opportunity disappears. Hopefully not for long. And then the AFC Cup competition will be that level of competition for not just us, but for everybody else. So we will go and enjoy this last experience for now. And then, whatever the future looks like, but we will always try, if we can, to challenge ourselves against the best, because that's the only way you're going to develop and get better, whether that's Champions League or, as it may be in the future, AFC Cup. So I don't know if that answers your question. Like I said at the start, this is the 5th different tournament we've played in 12 months. So clubs will approach each of those however they seem or they want to. If you think we're taking this tournament lightly, I can assure you, you come into this playing group and you see how the staff are preparing for this tournament. It's not one we're taking lightly. We want to be successful. We think we have the squad that can firstly challenge and get out of the group in what will be a tough challenge. And then it's interesting to see how far you can go in any tournament football. So yeah, I understand people will make their own opinions on what is right or wrong, but for us as a club and what we want to try and do both short term and long term, this is a wonderful opportunity to really see what our Indian players, young and old, can do together, whilst also trying to still challenge and not take this competition lightly. It's just a different way of looking to do it. Yeah, Raul will lead this side, and I think anyone that captains not just the club, but certainly the club and the area that they grew up in, it's a wonderful thing for him and his family. But this isn't the first time he's done this season and before. This season in particular, when Matada Fall hasn't taken to the field, Raul has won the armband and led the team and led it extremely well over the course of what's been a very successful season. So he's a very good role model for everyone, not just the young players, but everyone that we have within our squad. And that's the reason he carries that armband, because he represents not just the players, he represents the staff, and he represents what we're about as a club. And into the Super Cup and hopefully allow us to have some further success. Look, I think it's a shame, yes, because when you look at our football development now in the country, the ISL is just finishing off its 9th season, so it's come a long way. It's come a very long way, and to have the opportunity to go and play at the top level of competition in Asia, which the Champions League gives you, is a wonderful pathway to be able to then go and see how good you can be on that stage. And when I look at the two teams that have gone in the two opportunities we have had while we've had that opportunity, you look at Goa when they went the first time in year 1, they performed very well. Come away with 3 draws in the first time without anyone knowing what that level of competition would look like for an Indian side. And they put very good account of themselves across in each of those games. We went last year, and I'd like to think we were able to really showcase, not just winning 1 game, but winning 2 and getting the draw. So we actually got results in 3 of the 6 games and finished second in that group. So in terms of only having 2 opportunities so far, and what will be the third, we'll go and try and do as well as we can, of course. But when Indian teams have had the opportunity to go to that level, they've shown what Indian football can do, whether it was a Goa before or us last year. So it's a shame that won't be there in the foreseeable future. But I hope that there's an opportunity in a not too distant future for that to come back onto the table and be a real pathway for teams to progress into, whether it's us or it's other teams in this league. Because I look across the league now, and I look not just the foreign players, but the development of that league going into its 10th season next year. And I see some wonderful players, and to have the opportunity to showcase what they can do on that stage, I think is great for the benefit of not just themselves, but for Indian football. We do as we're told. We even if we were to voice our opinion, we get on with it. We're professional coaches, we're professional players, and we're a professional club. Even our Champions League game, both Jamshedpur and ourselves, we had to travel to Kerala to go and play that game. And yeah, okay, it's maybe logistically challenging, but you know, we're professionals. We get on with it. You never hear us complain about it, and it'll be the same in the Super Cup. We'll go and we'll do our best. We know there may be some potential issues we'll run into, but as we have done in the last 2 years, we try and find solutions and we deal with it. And the main thing is that we try and put our best football onto the field. So all the other things I don't have control of, and neither do the players. And most of the time, neither did the club. So we go where we're told. We obviously have some feedback at the end, but it's never too much of an issue for us. We just focus very much on trying to prepare this team to play as well as they can. Yeah, I think I've listed a load of names earlier around the players that have taken to the field pretty regularly in our starting 11. So all of those, you know, we've got the golden ball winner still in Chante, who will take to the field. You know, we will field our strongest side that we can, and then we'll feed in game time to those younger players as and when we feel there's a need or we want to. But yes, there's lots of, you know, I think Vikram was a name that was mentioned earlier, but we still have a majority of those players I've mentioned, they're still very young. You know, I look at Vignesh, left back, still 24, Apulya's 22, Metab's 23, 24, Fuba's 24, and then Vikram, you know, 21, 22, Gurkarat, Ayush, they're all very young, but they're all exciting, and that's why they're here, and that's why it's good to work with them day in, day out, and that's why this tournament will provide a fantastic platform for them to go and really showcase or show what they can do, maybe a bit more often. No, it doesn't limit. I think it's just a shame that it's gone away for the time being. But we need to make sure that we do everything we can. I've spoken about just making sure we build this club up and we develop it in a way that allows players to develop, and it allows us to be as good as we can be. And you know, the next level, highest level of competition after this season will be the AFC Cup and the group stages of that competition. So we will continue to try and strive towards that, and do as much as we can to be successful at that level. And hopefully, in the not too distant future, when the Champions League comes back on the table for qualification, you know, we can be amongst those clubs that challenge again to try and get back into that level. You know, it's funny, when we went last year, I think people were worried. It was only the second time, of course, after Goa, that a team had gone. And when you don't get the opportunity to go over a period of time, there's always uncertainty, and you're unsure as to should you do well, should you not do well, because you're not sure the levels you're competing against. And I think when we went, people were a little bit concerned that we might not do very well. But then the narrative seemed to change towards the end, that there was disappointment that we hadn't got out of the group. So it was a nice narrative change. So we know the level of competition we will go into. It's very high, it's very tough. And if we can get close to replicating what we did the last time, it'll be a wonderful achievement. But we will be striving, as we did in the last time we went, we'll be striving to do as much as we can. And if our performances can be as good as they were, with a different squad going into next year, we'll do as much as we can to get as many points as we can to get ourselves then a little bit further and deeper into that tournament than we did last time. But I think last time it was only a point that we actually missed out on actually progressing through anyway. So yes is the answer, I think, to your question. I'd like to think a lot. You know, I spoke in the season about every single one of them that will take to the field in the Super Cup. They've all featured at some point during the ISL season. So all of them are taken to the field anyway. So they've trained with us all season, every single day. They've all had a taste of ISL, some more than others, of course. But this presents a great opportunity for them to have more time and more impact. And I'll use young Vikram as an example. He's probably had less game time than was planned for him this year, because he's been sitting in patiently behind Chante. And Chante's had a wonderful season, and that's limited Vikram's time. But the way that he, and I include all the others in this, the way that they work on a day-to-day basis, and how patient they are, it's then about making sure they take their opportunities. And the reason I use Vikram in this example is because anytime that he's come onto the pitch, he has really taken those opportunities, whether it be to help us see the game out in terms of winning the game and what we need defensively, or certainly in an attacking sense, I think he's contributed towards 7 goals in the time that he's been on the field. It was 2 penalties that he won, and I think he's scored himself a few goals along the way as well. So it's about them having impact, and in the space of time that he had, I'm now excited to see, with more game time, which they'll certainly get at this competition, what they can do with more time. So yes, it's one I'm looking forward to, and it's one certainly I know the young players are looking forward to. But like I said, they're surrounded and will be surrounded by some very experienced younger and older Indian players that will hopefully allow us to all be successful.